In the news tonight, Their Majesties King Abdullah and Queen Rania attend the annual ceremony of the King Abdullah II Fund for Development, dubbed Active Citizens, Creative and Qualified for the Job Market. The Jordan Football Association announces His Royal Highness Prince Ali will stand in FIFA upcoming elections after Sepp Blatter's resignation as president. And Syrian factions fight for control in the country's north, with government forces trying to repel a Daesh attack on the city of Hasaka. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. His Majesty the King, accompanied by Her Majesty Queen Rania, attended the annual ceremony of King Abdullah II Fund for Development, dubbed Active Citizens, Creative and Qualified for the Job Market. At the gathering, 105 youth between the ages of 16 and 35 and 5 NGOs won in the competition in a host of fields promoting civic practices such as dialogue culture, rule of law, and ventures enabling citizens to be more effective in public life and decision making. In an address during the ceremony, head of the fund's Board of Trustees, Aimat Fakhouri, overviewed the fund's achievements ever since it was established, particularly in projects and programs implemented by the fund via effective citizenship, entrepreneurship, innovation and development and employment. Fakhouri said the fund's programs provided an opportunity for 135,000 young men and women to implement voluntary work to serve their local communities. His Majesty the King accepted the credentials of 7 newly appointed ambassadors to the kingdom. The envoys are Junever Mahilum, west of the Philippines; Edward Oakden of Great Britain and Northern Ireland; Muhammad Haji Hamza of Tanzania; Jof Otieno Makowengo of Kenya; El Sadiq Bakhit El Faqi Abdullah of Sudan; Miriam Molenga of Zambia; and Mati Lasila of Finland. Arriving at Basman Palace for the ceremony, King Abdullah reviewed a guard of honor as a military band played the national anthems of Jordan and the countries of the envoys. The ambassadors laid wreaths on the tombs of the late King Hussein, King Abdullah I, and King Talal. The Vice President of Jordan's Football Association welcomed Sepp Blatter's resignation as FIFA president. He announced that His Royal Highness Prince Ali ibn al-Hussein will stand in any upcoming elections. Prince Ali was the only man to challenge Blatter in Friday's election and withdrew his candidacy after the first round. But now, more candidates are lining up to replace Blatter.
The battle to succeed Sepp Blatter as FIFA president has begun in earnest, and the competition is fierce. Jordan's Prince Ali was the runner-up at last week's meeting where Blatter was re-elected, and Jordan's Football League believes he is now the obvious choice, although Ali is giving little away.
I'm very happy that the change happened. I cannot say anything any more than that.
Honorary FIFA Vice President Chung Mong-jun is one man who has openly said he's looking at the job. He says he'll talk with other leaders in the sport and decide soon what to do.
I will make my decision after meeting with international football leaders and listening to their opinions.
But the man who is considered most likely to become the next head of FIFA is the French national who heads the UEFA, Michel Platini. Noël Le Gras the head of the French Football Federation, says Platini is the best man for the job.
All the Europeans think that Michel is the best, but it's up to him to decide if he wants to change his life. He's the key player in world football today. He's the one with the most experience.
Whoever becomes the next head of the sport will need to move quickly to put the scandal behind it, says Frédéric Thierry, the president of the French Football League.
The way ahead is clear. We urgently need to get out of this crisis because today I'm thinking about the millions of young kids throughout the world, along with fans, who are confused by what is going on.
Whoever wins will face a huge task in shepherding the organization through a scandal that seems to widen by the day.
The White House, meanwhile, said the resignation of FIFA President Sepp Blatter will give the International Soccer Organization an opportunity to improve its image. A U.S. law enforcement official said the FBI's investigation of alleged corruption at FIFA includes scrutiny of how soccer's governing body awarded the 2018 World Cup to Russia and the 2022 competition to Qatar. Some of the World Cup's top sponsors also welcomed Blatter's resignation. This report has more.
To be associated with the beautiful game and its audience is a huge draw. Now FIFA's disgruntled sponsors have welcomed Sepp Blatter's surprise resignation. Visa and other key partners are pleased the man at the top of football's governing body has gone. It's the first step, they say, towards the wholesale reform the sport needs. Richard Hunter is head of equities at Hargreaves Lansdowne.
The sponsors are going to need to be confident that the organisation and the sport with which they're dealing has a clean bill of health. So it's important, even before the next World Cup in 2018, that some significant progress is made in cleaning up the operation.
Since Blatter resigned, Interpol has announced that 2 former FIFA officials are on its Red Notice wanted list. That's on top of the US investigation of alleged theft and bribery going back 24 years, and the Swiss criminal inquiry into the award of the 2018 World Cup to Russia and the 2022 tournament to Qatar. The sponsors are not getting away without some scrutiny of their role. Dr. David Webber is an expert in the political economy of football.
These are, after all, business interests which were quite willing to turn a blind eye to human rights abuses, yet it was only when financial irregularities were starting to be reported that the sponsors themselves got a little bit jittery.
The clamour for reform from fans dismayed by the negative coverage is loud and clear.
The headlines should be about football. They shouldn't be about FIFA. FIFA do not own football. FIFA simply hold football in trust. This is a game of the people. It should be run for the people.
Attention turns now to FIFA's new leadership. Chung Mong-jun, the billionaire scion of South Korea's Hyundai conglomerate, one of the organisation's top sponsors, is considering running. Whoever gets the top job will have to convince sponsors and fans that football is safe in their hands.
In regional news, U.S. and coalition forces conducted 18 airstrikes targeting Daesh in 10 Iraqi cities since yesterday. In a dramatic move, the militants closed gates of a dam on the Euphrates River in western Iraq, reducing the water and giving them greater freedom of movement to attack government forces downstream on the southern bank. Local officials said the militants redirected the flow of water to their advantage on the battlefield around the city of Ramadi. The officials added that the tactic also threatens southern provinces with drought, and the water had been reduced to worrying levels. A spokesman for the governor of Anbar province said security forces would now have to redeploy along the river to prevent the insurgents from infiltrating. And in Syria, fighters from the opposition Free Syrian Army battled Daesh militants, firing machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades at bases of the terror group north of Aleppo city. The Free Syrian Army fighters used mortars and heavy weapons to shell Daesh targets. Across the north of Syria, various rebel groups, the Syrian military and Daesh, are involved in fighting to control territory. In the northeast, government forces and allied militia battled to repel an attack by Daesh militants on the city of Hasaka. Hasaka is divided into zones run separately by the Syrian government and a Kurdish administration whose well-organized militia receives air support from the US-led alliance. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said Daesh used car bombs to attack government forces 2 kilometers south of the city. In Paris, foreign ministers vowed to take a long-term view of the fight against Daesh terrorists in the second meeting of the coalition against the militant group. German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier said there would be no change of strategy in the war against the terror militia. He added that instead, the coalition needed to stay the course. Steinmeier said nobody thought that it would be possible to achieve an easy victory over Daesh. In addition to discussing military strategy, the foreign ministers also talked about how to stabilize territory liberated from Daesh. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi spoke of the coalition's failure and lack of support for his country. Saudi-led airstrikes killed around 20 Houthi rebels outside the southern Yemeni port city of Aden. The Houthis were killed when an air raid hit their military convoy as they were transporting an artillery piece toward the northwest suburbs of Aden. Sources also said the Arab jets struck 3 homes and killed 8 people on the outskirts of the Yemeni capital, Sana'a. Also hit was the home of a Houthi leader in the central province of Ib and areas in the northern province of Sa'da and the southern province of Lash. A deepening humanitarian crisis has gripped Yemen as the Arab alliance keeps a near blockade on food and fuel imports. Dozens of Chinese family members walked in protest at the rescue site of a cruise ship that sank in the Yangtze River. Rescuers searched for more than 400 missing people, but hopes were fading of finding more survivors. Only 14 people, including the ship's captain, have been found alive, with 456 people on board. The search area has been expanded up to 220 kilometers downstream, suggesting that bodies could have been swept far away from where the ship foundered. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said those responsible for a fresh outbreak of fighting in East Ukraine aimed at stalling progress in peace talks. Ukrainian troops and pro-Russian separatists fought their first serious battles in months. Ukraine's defense minister said an attempt by rebels to take the eastern town of Mariinka had been thwarted. The Ukrainian military said the Russian-backed rebels had tried to advance using tanks and up to 1,000 fighters west of the main rebel stronghold of Donetsk. The separatists denied that and accused government troops of firing artillery at rebel territory around Donetsk, killing 15 people. A 2-day seminar by the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries OPEC started in the Austrian capital, Vienna. The effects of the Middle East political and security crisis on oil supply figured high on the agenda. Attending the meeting were chief executives of the world's biggest energy groups, including BP and Exxon, companies whose fortunes have been abruptly altered by OPEC's decision to abandon efforts aimed at sustaining oil prices at more than $100 a barrel in favor of defending market share. Executive Director of the International Energy Agency, Maria van der Hoeven, said the biggest capacity growth within OPEC was expected in Iraq. She warned of potential supply disruptions due to the ongoing crisis with Daesh, which now controls large swathes of Syria and Iraq.
Threats to supply also remain, and while the market is currently well supplied, as indicated by the recent drop in oil prices, political insecurity could potentially disrupt projected supply. For example, according to the IEA's 2015 medium-term oil market report, nearly 90% of OPEC capacity growth over the coming 5 years will come from Iraq, a country that faces numerous political and security challenges. And while Iraq's production has been impressive, given the political conditions the country is operating under, significant risks remain.
A ruby and diamond necklace broke a world record at Christie's jewelry auction in Hong Kong by selling for $13 million. The ruby necklace is comprised of fine red rubies from Burma, unenhanced in any way and put together in a necklace with diamonds by design house, etc. The evening also saw a number of records broken, with the sale grossing the highest amount for any jewelry auction in Asia. Among other records was a 10.33 carat circular cut cashmere sapphire, which broke a world auction record price per carat for sapphire at almost $2.5 million. And a jadeite cabochon ruby and diamond necklace hit a world auction record for a single jadeite cabochon, selling selling for almost 5.7 million. A 38.51 pristine Colombian emerald sold for over 1.9 million. Rafael Benitez was appointed Real Madrid coach, succeeding Italian Carlo Ancelotti, who was sacked after Real failed to either defend their Champions League crown or win the domestic league or cup. The 55-year-old Spaniard quit A-side Napoli last week, taking on one of the most demanding jobs in the club football, in which he will be expected to deliver trophies in short order. A former Valencia, Liverpool, Inter Milan and Chelsea manager, Benitez began coaching in Real's youth academy in 1986 after injury ended his hopes of becoming a professional player. He is the 10th coach to be appointed by President Florentino Perez during his 2 6-year stints at the helm of the world's richest club by income. After a glittering career that has seen him win almost every trophy, Xavi Hernandez bid an emotional farewell to Barcelona after 17 years in the first team. The midfielder said his last goodbye to followers and teammates as he prepares his last game for the Catalan side in the Champions League final on Saturday in Berlin. The 35-year-old is joining Qatari Al-Sadd.
Gràcies al Barça I a tots els que feu possible el Barça.
Thanks to Barca and all of you who make Barca possible. I will always be thankful to this club and everything that it has given to me. Before I leave, I hope to lift one more trophy this weekend in Berlin. I hope this is not goodbye, but see you soon. Long live Barca and long live Catalonia.
And finally, a quick look at the weather. A bit chilly in Amman and much of the hilly areas tonight, and mild in other parts of the kingdom. A slight drop in temperature is in the forecast tomorrow, so it'll be fair in many regions but relatively hot in the south. Winds will be westerly moderate, changing to northwesterly in the evening. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect fair conditions tonight and hot tomorrow, with northerly moderate winds and slightly rough seas. Here now is a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. Their Majesties King Abdullah and Queen Rania attend the annual ceremony of the King Abdullah II Fund for Development, dubbed Active Citizens, Creative and Qualified for the Job Market. The Jordan Football Association announces His Royal Highness Prince Ali will stand in FIFA upcoming elections after Sepp Blatter's resignation as president. And Syrian factions fight for control in the country's north, with government forces trying to repel a Daesh attack on the city of Hasaka. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Aliya Turkan. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.